Olá pessoal, o papo hoje vai ser essa belezinha aqui, um conjunto de 3 equipamentos muito bacanas. Esses equipamentos na realidade foram herdados pelo meu amigo Evan, são os equipamentos da mãe dele, já falecida, que ele confiou para eu dar uma olhadinha, para ver se eles estão funcionando, para dar um trato geral neles e enfim, isso aqui é joia de família para ele, tá? E eu vou fazer esse trabalho aí. Vou dar uma mostrada aí para vocês, mas o trabalho principal de fazer a apresentação inteira eu vou fazer em inglês, para que ele possa assistir naturalmente, né? Vou tentar falar devagar, tá? Mas é qualquer coisa, vocês põem aí a legenda aí embaixo, tá? Tomara que dê certo. É isso aí. Vamos lá apresentar essas belezinhas aqui. Tudo da Yamaha, viu? Coisa de primeiríssima. Well, Evan, here are the 3 stacked up finally. I'm gonna get to them, to do a restoration and clean it up and see what's going on with those 3. First one, the Amplifier CA2010. I got the schematics, the service manual for it, so I can go very thorough in repairing and seeing what's going on with it. I haven't tested yet. I need to test it with loudspeakers and such, but cosmetically speaking, it's in excellent shape, but it's just dirty. So I'm not sure if you will show in the camera, but the front is, you can tell maybe it's spilled some sort of water or humidity or something like that. The switches are, despite they're in good shape, they're very dirty with some sort of grease of sorts. So maybe it was exposed to dust or something. This switch is a little bit loose, completely loose, but this is easy because it's just a matter of screwing a screw here on this small. There is a small hole here, so this is a screw that actually fixes it in place. Everything else, the bass and the treble controls are not stuck, which is great. Even the volume control here is not stuck as well. It's normal over time to get the grease, for instance, on these controls that becomes like a cement or something. So you really cannot twist those. Balance controls also very, very smooth. So of course we need to check with the amplifier turned on. We need to turn these controls and see if there's no scratching. If there is scratching, then we need to see the potentiometer. The potentiometer here is probably dirty. Same thing with the bass and treble here. Similar thing also with the switches. Sometimes you switch, you flip a switch, and then it does that noise, that typical noise, that scratching noise. So it's not very good. But overall, everything else really good. All the selectors here, the switches are not blocked. Similar thing, they have no grease, so they're not stuck. So switches seem to be in very good shape. It's just dirty in the front. Then we move up to the one that is in actually the best shape of them all, the tuner. I don't know what happened, but this is in extremely clean condition. So I don't know how they were actually stored over time. But the switch is in really good shape here. There's not much of the stuff that you can see on the amplifier, okay? So it's all right. And of course, this is the potentiometer is also good. The switch seem to be switching very good too. Of course, I need to check how they actually act when the equipment is turned on, if they're scratching or not. But overall, everything else is in excellent shape, and even the balance, not the balance, but the dial turning, which has that beautiful inertia, so typical of the 70s equipment and the 80s equipment. This is really, really beautiful. So everything is working really well. And this is also a system, the system that goes through the dial and through the visor It's actually a system of strings and pulleys. So this is actually, the fact that this is working, it's a good sign. It seems that the equipment was really well maintained. And the last one, last but not least, is the cassette. The cassette, I need to test it as well, just to see how the motors are running and etc. All the mechanics. Overall, it's a little bit dusty too, compared to the tuner. So I wonder if the cassette and the amplifier were stored at the same place. I don't know. But overall, it's in excellent shape. Okay, of course, check how the things are working. No potentiometers, no switches are bad. Okay, so they're not stuck or anything. And all the controls are electronic, so I need to check also the functionality of these controls, if they are actually, the actuators on the cassette are actually working nicely. Also, it's super dirty, so that's, apart from that, the eject system is working fine. I'll probably put some sort of grease that actually dampens this effect, so it goes smoother, a little bit smoother. But overall, everything is fine. Looking at the heads inside, I'm sorry, the camera is not in a bad, it's in a bad angle. The cameras overall, the heads overall are just dirty, but they are probably in good shape still. There's the rubbery that actually pulls, that presses the tape. It is okay, but these things tend to dry over the years, so it may need some replacement to work better. So yeah, overall, that's it. Just showing the three guys here. They're in good shape. I'm gonna start working on them finally. Sorry for the delay. Let's move on to the amplifier. Okay, this is the back of the amplifier. Okay, the wood is in excellent shape. Okay, there's a little bit of a grime here that it can be cleaned. There's a few scratches, just a few, but then nothing really tremendously bad. And the grating is in excellent shape. There's no bends or anything, so it's in incredible shape, this grating here. This is just for, of course, the amplifier will heat up, so this is the this has to be completely open, because that's the air, the hot air that comes through here, and it enters the amplifier through here, and probably from the bottom as well. There's probably gratings at the bottom as well. And this is all the inputs. All the inputs, the RCA jacks, are in good shape. They're not rusted out, which is very important. And I think that there's just dust, so it's just a matter of a wipe would actually do okay. And even the connection for the ground here is fine as well. So this is all the input selection. 2 record players, the tuner that you have as well, auxiliary, which could be anything else. Then you have tape 1 and tape 2, so you have 2 inputs for tape decks, and playback and rack out. So basically you can play back, so this comes the audio from the tape, and record out. You can actually put that in input to the second tape, so you can do tape editing and all that stuff. And the preamplifier output here, this is very common too. So you have all these arrangements on the mixer, and then you can actually output this to a higher power amplifier. And then you have the main in, which I'm not so sure what it is. So yeah, I would have to check on the manual. I don't recognize the main in. Anyways, and these are the loudspeakers. They're very dirty as well, but they seem in good shape. You typically either you press or you rotate. You have to figure out which is this mode. And also, this was a very common thing as well. You have the switches for all the other equipment. So one of them is switched, and the other 3. So the switch, it means that when you turn on the amplifier, this one also turns on. So this is controlled by the power switch of the amplifier. And these other 3 are permanently connected to the outlet. And the only other thing that is actually bad is the cable is a little bit fried here. So this will probably be good for a replacement, I think, or maybe it's just glue, I don't know. But yeah, overall it's not in great shape, but it's still original, so it's pretty cool. I'll probably ask you if you want to replace that or not. Overall, that's in good shape. It seems original, and as far as I can tell right now, it doesn't seem to have been opened by anybody. And there you go. So the sign here, like serial number, and Mr. Okamoto-san passed the inspection. So it should be good. Thank you, Mr. Okamoto, for the years of service. Now, the tuner, also the back of the tuner and the back of the tape deck. The tape deck is very simple, just the input and output for record and playback, and everything else. Not much to see here. Just everything is in good shape as well. And the receiver here, just like the amplifier, the wood is in excellent shape. Doesn't seem to have been opened ever for repairs or anything like that. And these are just all the inputs. This is the outputs. This is the back panel. These are the outputs, the audio outputs from the tuner, and these are the antenna connections. You have like unbalanced 75 ohms for the antenna, single pole antenna, unbalanced, or and the 300 ohms balanced, which is a parallel tape as you call it. It's a antenna with 2 wires, so it's the balance or differential, just like our Bluetooth devices. So basically that's what it is. Oh, and that's for the FM. These are 2 for the FM radio, and these are the connections for the AM antenna. Antenna is unbalanced by default, and you have the ground connections in the middle as well. So basically that's it. Not much else. The same. Okamoto-san, Mr. Okamoto, also passed inspection in here. So overall, excellent shape as well on these 2. All right, taking out the 4 screws. It's always good to have like mini boxes or envelopes, mini bags, small small containers like those for all the parts that you disassemble. But removing all the 4 screws on the sides, let's take a look at how it looks. So that's the cover, the wooden cover. Whoa, okay. All right. So inside there's a little bit of dust inside. So we're gonna actually take a closer look here. All right. So looking around in the angle, this is the front panel right here. So well, evident is the massive power transformers, absolutely enormous in here. The 2 big filter capacitors. So this is very common. These capacitors are from Nippon Chemical, 22,000 microfarads by 71 volts each. So this is very common, very typical for these types of amplifiers. I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but there's a relay down here and a few solenoids in here. I don't know if the camera angle is allowing you to do that. Then you have like 2 massive heat sinks for the 2 big power amplifiers. So this is all adds weight. This unit weighs a ton. It's amazing. And then you have this area here which is very shielded, just probably, this is absolute metal, so it's very shielded. It's probably the preamplifiers and all that. And that is also evidenced. You can see those shafts in here. Those shafts are the input selection. You see how mechanically interesting they are. They're really almost robot arms that you select in the front panel, and then they actually go straight to a switch that's probably soldered on the circuit board underneath this big thing. We're gonna open it all. So there's another board down below here which has more controls. It's probably, yeah, the tone control. There's tone controls and all that. They connect to the front panel here. This other board right on the top here, it seems to be a board for the VU meters here, right here. So yeah, this is overall the overall view, the overview of the unit, and you can tell it's very dirty. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a cleanup before I start messing up my office here. and we're gonna actually do a visual inspection just to be sure that nothing is really bad. Everything is really good. So let's go. And just as a curious detail, there you are. There's a little spider, or a skeleton of a spider that used to live here. That's why the equipment is full full of spider webs, as you can tell here. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see on the camera. There's spider webs here, there's spider webs here. They are everywhere. That's just par for the course on this old equipment. There's absolutely no way. And just on the detail, the two output transistors, half of one channel. So these are two TO3 transistors, and the white part here is the compound, the thermal compound, to improve the thermal conductivity from the transistor itself to the heat sink. These are heavy metal. So the other two, I'm just using a flashlight here, and then the other two are on the other side of the heat sink. There's one here, and the other one is down below, just a little bit hidden by the power transformer right here. So yeah, this is pure brute force in the shape of heavy metal. So I removed the black cover on one side of the equipment, and now we can appreciate a little bit more this low noise area here. And there's a few things that I don't recognize, but dominating the whole image are the three big shafts that go from the panel, from the front panel, and completely with double articulated shafts that go straight to the three switches that are actually enclosed way back here. This is typically done to remove or reduce noise, or at least keep the high sensitive areas behind in a very enclosed area on the equipment. But you can appreciate the engineering when you see the double articulation in here. It's absolutely amazing to see that somebody has to think about that and actually dispense with all the engineering to create those parts specifically for that, and putting in an angle and whatnot. It's absolutely amazing. And of course, this is the circuit for the input selection, because these three switches select the inputs, phono, tape, all the inputs. These are the big RCAs on the back that have the multiple inputs. So things that we actually always look around in a board like that are capacitors. These are the usual things that actually tend to get old. Another thing that I'm trying to look here is for date codes. I'll take a look at the ICs. Usually the ICs have date codes, or sometimes they're even written on the board itself. So overall, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for also for burned areas and things like that. There's nothing in here. And I'm also looking for something that seems to have been touched by a technician over the lifetime of the equipment. And at this point, I can't spot anything. So basically, we are going to do a zoom, and then you can actually see in more detail all these aspects in here. So this is the main volume and balance potentiometer. You can tell here, this is absolutely fantastic. This is actually enormous. It has several sections. You see these rows of pins. There's rows of pins in here. They usually form a section where you have the wiper in one side and then the other side of the potentiometer. So it seems to have 6 sections inside this huge box. But this is absolutely massive, and a potentiometer like this is almost irreplaceable nowadays. These things are, I risk saying, this is almost military grade. It's absolutely fantastic, such a potentiometer like that. Multi-gang, and you can tell it's interesting, it's soldered. The wires are soldered in here, and they actually go to the next board. But some of them, this one is a shielded one. This guy here is a shielded one that goes all the way down to the equipment, and it goes somewhere down there, which it probably goes to the power amplifiers. But that is the main volume and balance control. Then you have here a big the first board that connects to the volume and balance, and you can tell the connections in here. I hopefully can see here, but they're not soldered, but they're wire wrapped. The wires are actually wrapped alongside those terminals in here. So the transistors are all modern in the sense that they're actually fine epoxy black transistors, so it's usually easier to find a replacement in case one is actually busted. The capacitors here, I'm trying to look at them. They are really not bulged or anything like that, but it doesn't mean that they're terribly good. You never know those things. So let me see here, a little bit above too. So there's nothing bad in here. These capacitors here, this is a polyester. These are also a polyester capacitors, I think. Yeah. Oh, maybe. Oh, there's a styroflex in here. These capacitors usually don't go bad. It's very rare for these to go bad. The electrolytic ones, these, especially the tiny little ones here, and especially if they are close to warm areas, these capacitors usually have to go. Especially after a certain age, it's usually quite prudent to actually replace everything. So we move on a little bit to the switches. The switches are absolutely amazing. This one is fully enclosed. This one is fully enclosed, but amazing how the whole thing rotates. It's mechanically incredible. This one has multiple sections. It has small little boards, and they're all connected through the contacts. I don't know if you can see inside them, but there's a wiper connect that actually connects it to several sections in there, and that's the third switch as well. This is the third switch with just two sections, two small boards in here, so it's a little bit simpler. These switches are also irreplaceable. If one of those breaks, you have to do everything in your power to disassemble them and try to fix them, because you cannot buy anything these days. Another interesting thing here is a small relay. Relays are usually used to actually help with protection. So sometimes you have, when you turn on the amplifier, usually relays, there's a delay circuit to actually do not turn on the amplifier in full power while all the other systems are powering, which could overload, rectifiers and all that stuff. And there's these two hybrids in here. This is typically called hybrid circuits. This may be two amplifiers. This is like a big epoxy cans, bigger than a transistor with several pins. So this will be usually integrated circuits. I need to actually check on the schematics, but these are we should call them hybrid circuits, because they have like transistors, resistors, capacitors, everything inside these big packages in here. And besides, another thing that you always want to see is this is very common, somebody looks at the equipment the first time, first thing that is not working, they go with a screwdriver and they start flipping around the trim pots, coils, everything, and you say it's a huge no-no. You don't go ahead and do this, because this is all calibrations and all that you can do once the circuit is working. Don't try to do this as a first recourse. So there you go. This is the low-level signal board here, and of course a little bit of the lower board there with the front panel, the tone control board. Oh, and here this is the other channel with the two big transistors in there. Four big transistors in there in class AB, which is very typical of linear amplifiers like those. Just a second look on those hybrids, as I call them, hybrids. On the schematics diagram, these are shown as it's one ultra low noise operation amplifier for the phono entry. So it has two phono entries for the record player, which usually the signals from a phono player are usually extremely low, so they require a really special operation amplifier, something that you buy now in a very small package. This is what they had, everything else, or most of everything, is transistor. So that's why I'm guessing this is at least a design from the 70s. Another point also that I highlight are the tantalum capacitors. These guys here, usually they're fine, leave them alone. However, if something bad happens, the voltages go up too fast or something like that, these tends to catch fire. So you usually, especially capacitors on this age, usually is a good idea to replace them, but that will depend on other factors, especially because these capacitors tend to be expensive, on the expensive side. So tantalum capacitors, always be careful, especially from this age, is because they are usually fine, but if something bad happens in terms of voltage or supply or something like that, they will explode in a very spectacular way and also catch fire. This is just one last detail. These seem to be heat sinks for rectifiers, for the diode rectifiers for the main power supply. That's what I can see. I can't really ascertain for sure. This is a relay. This is a soft start usually. Like the other relay, whenever you turn on the amplifier, you don't want everything, including the loudspeakers, to pop. So you usually time delay a little bit, so you disconnect parts of it, and then eventually turn on the amplifier, at least the loudspeakers, to actually everything be easier, or at least smoother, and doesn't overload these circuits in here. And here's just a detail of one of the big Nippon Chemical capacitors of the main power supply. So, well, for now, at this point, I'll leave it at that. I need to just do an air, use a compressor to just blow air on it and just blow the dust out of it. And I'm going to, after I do this, I'm gonna open up a little bit more and take a look at those some of those capacitors, some of those other circuits, and I'll keep taping, shooting as we see fit.